Everyone, and welcome to this explainer. So today we are unpacking something absolutely fascinating and honestly pretty provocative. We're looking at a text by Zhu Feng titled Love is a State of Being. And let me tell you, we are going to dive straight into a philosophical framework that completely deconstructs our traditional, everyday understanding of love. Seriously, whether you're a hopeless romantic or a total skeptic, this source material is going to give you a radically different lens through which to view human connection. Our goal today is just to break these ideas down step by step so we can really wrap our heads around what this philosophy is proposing. All right, let's dive right in.
Right off the bat, we're hit with a massive pattern interrupt. For centuries, the phrase, "I love you," has been like the ultimate romantic ideal, right? It's something people crave. But Zhu Feng aggressively challenges this, arguing that saying "I love you" is actually a hallucination. In fact, the author goes even further in the text, calling the phrase an unpredictable cloud, a colorful bubble, and get this, even an anesthetic. It's a total rejection of the romanticized phrase we're all so used to. So it makes you wonder. If love isn't something you just say to a specific person, then what exactly is it?
That brings us to part 1, the concept. Moving from an emotion to a state of being.
To really grasp this philosophy, we have to kind of strip away the whole idea of love as a fleeting reactive emotion. Instead, the text asks us to visualize love as a natural, constant state of being. Think about a constantly shining sun or a blooming peony, a roaring river, or bright stars twinkling in the night sky. What do all of those things have in common? Well, they just exist, and they do what they do completely independently of any observers. The text makes this great point. A flower blooms right on time, regardless of whether anyone is watching, and regardless of whether bees and butterflies show up to gather its nectar. And love, in this framework, is exactly like that. It's just a state that exists, naturally radiating outward.
Now here's a crucial rule the text asserts. True love has absolutely no specific target. If you're directing your affection at one specific person or thing, you're basically operating like a searchlight or a spotlight. You're lighting up one tiny little area, but you're leaving everything else in the dark. Real love, the text argues, is like the sun. The sun doesn't pick and choose who gets its warmth, right? It shines constantly and equally on everything, period. If there's a target, the author insists, it just simply isn't love.
Moving on to part 2, the traits, the unconditional rules of true love. The first absolute rule here is super bold. Love cannot hurt anyone. I mean, we constantly hear phrases in pop culture like "love hurts," usually talking about heartbreak or jealousy. But in Zhu Feng's framework, if an emotion leads to pain, grief, suffering, hatred, or desperation, then it is definitively not real love. By this definition, true love only brings warmth, harmony, happiness, and positive energy. If there's negative energy present, the state of love just isn't there.
Building on that, the text outlines these other really fascinating absolutes. First off, true love is totally free and priceless. It can't be bought, demanded, or forced. Second, it needs absolutely nothing in return, meaning no debts, no responsibilities, and no obligations attached. It's totally unconditional. But honestly, those last 2 points are perhaps the most radically challenging. The text states that true love treats beggars and billionaires identically. It doesn't distinguish between commoners and royalty at all. And finally, it is completely devoid of moral concepts or value systems. In this state, love exists totally above our human constructs of right and wrong or beautiful and ugly. It just purely radiates.
All right, part 3, the hierarchy of light, categorizing beings by love energy. So this is where the text brilliantly illustrates the concept of energy capacity. The author notes that the difference between various living beings isn't about their physical bodies. It's actually all about the amount of love energy they possess, and it's explained through this great lighting metaphor. Step 1 is a kerosene lamp. It has limited energy, only lighting up a single room. Step 2 is an electric lamp, which has more energy and can light up a whole yard. And step 3 is the sun, possessing massive energy to illuminate a huge area. Just like those light sources, different beings possess varying capacities to radiate love outward. Essentially, the more love a being has, the higher their level.
Now, impartially touring this philosophical framework, let's look at how these light levels actually translate into categories of beings. At the absolute lowest level of light, we have devils. Their target of love is entirely selfish. They only love and think about themselves. Next up are animals, who love and live for only one or a few people. Right above them are human beings, whose light spreads just a little bit further, loving and living for a specific group. And finally, at the highest tier, we have Buddhas, who act exactly like the sun, loving everything and living for the benefit of all living beings without any specific target.
Let's look a little closer at where everyday human behaviors fall on this spectrum, because the source material makes some deeply provocative claims here.
Based on the target of affection, the text categorizes loving exclusively within a monogamous marriage as the lowest level of animals. Why? Because the love is restricted to just one person. Expanding that slightly to loving your family categorizes you as the lowest level of human beings. And loving your own nation, religion, or political party places you solidly in the human being category. Again, we're just neutrally exploring the text here, but it's really fascinating to see how strictly the author applies that searchlight versus sun rule to reclassify things that society normally praises as high moral achievements.
Because of this highly limited, target-specific capacity for affection that defines the human tier, the author arrives at a very stark conclusion. Human beings are not worthy of speaking the word love. According to this framework, true, sun-like love is exclusively the patent of higher beings like bodhisattvas, angels, and Buddhas. The text boldly states that the whole concept of love is actually profaned when one ordinary human being says, "I love you" to another, because at the end of the day, they are just using a searchlight. They aren't generating the sun.
Which brings us to our final section, Part 4, the ultimate destination, transforming into love itself.
This whole journey really starts with a major internal realization. You will never feel love if you do not have love within yourself. The text uses a pretty cool biological analogy for this. It points out that you literally need to have eyes to be able to see the eyes of other living things, right? Or if you're colorblind, you simply can't see how colorful the world is. The philosophical takeaway here is that you must intrinsically possess this sun-like love energy to even recognize it or feel it out there in the universe. It absolutely has to start from within your own state of being.
And this internal transformation aligns with the text's ultimate spiritual pinnacle. In this philosophy, the greatest creator isn't described as a person or a judge or anything like that. The creator is defined purely and simply as the embodiment of love itself, the ultimate sun radiating energy equally to absolutely all things.
Which leads us to the ultimate spiritual endgame. According to Xu Feng, to enter the greatest creator's secret garden, which the text beautifully calls the celestial island continent of the Elysium world, living beings have to completely transcend their earthly, target-specific limitations. You can't get there by just loving your family or your nation. You have to completely transform yourself until you yourself become love, elevating into what the text calls a super-celestial being.
And that leaves us with this final, really profound question to chew on as we wrap up today's explainer. Based on everything we've unpacked from Xu Feng's radical redefinition, from totally discarding the hallucination of targeted emotion all the way to striving for the unconditional, radiant state of the sun, we have to ask ourselves, are you simply speaking of love, or are you ready to become it? It is a completely wild, totally different way to view our relationships, our energy, and our place in the universe. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring these fascinating ideas.